Weevil, and I'm coming to you today with another quick cast. And today I want to discuss the idea that the Jews killed Jesus because they had wanted him to be a military leader that was going to overthrow Rome. I hear this preached a lot, I hear this referenced a lot, and I don't know if I agree. And here's why. Mark chapter 12, the parable of the tenants. Now, don't get me wrong, I know that there were many, many Jews who did not appreciate the Roman occupation of Jerusalem. And you can go and you can look up that historically and you can do studies on that, and you're going to see that there were complications about that. But if you read your scriptures and you look at what's going on in this moment, I think that it starts to paint a different picture than just simply the Jews were angry at Jesus for not overthrowing Rome because that's what they thought the Messiah would do. And I think that Jesus gave us a big clue to this with the parable of the tenants. The parable of the tenants has a king over and over again sending, or a landowner sending over and over again a some people to the tenants of his vineyard, asking for what he's owed, a rent, right? And they over and over and over again are killing and beating these people. And then finally, the landowner sends his own son. And when he sends his own son, the tenants of the vineyard end up killing him, believing that if they did that, they would inherit the vineyard somehow, which of course is ridiculous. But this is what the tenants in the parable believe. And what does Jesus say will happen to those tenants? It says the owner is going to come and destroy the tenants and give the vineyards to others. Well, what does that sound like? When you look at the story, it's complicated combining all of the Jews into one thing. So you have the disciples who were clearly the Jews who were in support of Christ. You had the Pharisees who were in opposition of Christ, and then you had all the people in the middle. When the people greeted him when he came to Jerusalem, they were excited about him. And the disciples, yes, did they kind of mention, like, hey, it's time, we're going to do this, we're ever going to overthrow Rome? And Jesus is like, no. And they kind of seemed deflated by that. But they didn't want to kill him. They're the ones who brought that up. I don't recall, and maybe I'm wrong, but I don't recall when the Pharisees confronted Jesus and he said he was the Messiah, did they ever come up to him and say, well, go ahead and overthrow Rome? No, they were like, give us signs and wonders. And he was just like, no. You got to remember that the Pharisees had an agreement with Rome. They were sitting pretty well. They were basically in charge, and they were kind of not messed with by the Romans. The Romans weren't oppressing the Jewish people in the same way that, say, like the Egyptians were back in the day. The the Pharisees actually had some pull there. Of course, it was meaningless without Rome, but never do you see them say, hey, let's kill Jesus because he's not overthrowing Rome. And again, to be clear, I'm not lumping all of the Jews together in this. I'm advocating that you have to separate the Jews based on what they believed in and what they wanted. And what is very clear is the Pharisees had no intention of overthrowing Rome. The Pharisees went to Rome and asked Rome for help in killing Jesus because they thought if they had him out of the way, they would get the land. Look at the parable of the tenants. That's the real story between the Pharisees and Jesus. The followers of Jesus, the disciples, did they want him to go in there and conquer? Yeah, because he was their friend. Because he loved them, because they loved him. They didn't want him to die. They wanted him to go take over because they thought he was a good leader. And they were right. Things would have been better if he went and took over. But when he told them he wasn't going to do it, they didn't try to kill him. They tried to talk him out of it. And what did they do? Or what did he do when they tried to talk him out of it? He said, that's satanic. So just be careful about, the way that you see this situation. I think it's more complicated than that. It might be hard to imagine a people thinking that they can actually kill God, but make no mistake, they thought they did, and they did. They just got their fair warning about what would happen when they did, and they ignored it. So I think that's really the truth here. Did they want a conquering leader? No. They wanted to stay in their cushy situation and get that conquering leader out of the way, because when he came to conquer, they were going to be conquered. And I think that's really the truth here. Anyway, just something to think about. God bless you guys. Thanks for listening. Bye.